Ladies and gentlemen, it's currently January 2024, and over the last couple of months in the chess world, we've been hit with the cheating scandal 2.0. And the protagonists in this one are none other than Grandmaster and former world champion Vladimir Kramnik and Hikaru Nakamura. Kramnik has been on a bit of an anti-cheating crusade. Now, whether it's been fruitful or not is up to interpretation, but definitely most recently, he pointed all the fingers and all the spotlight at the streaks of one Hikaru Nakamura on chess.com. Recently, chess.com muted his blog due to various statements that he then went on to make against young prodigies and some of the younger folks that he thinks might not be playing fair. So it's been a whole thing. Now, while this has been going on, I've been very curious to see, will Magnus ever play Kramnik? Will Hikaru ever play Kramnik? Now, Kramnik has quit playing on chess.com multiple times. The earliest was in September when he posted, "I've decided to stop playing on chess.com from tomorrow on." This was 4 months ago. "Too many obvious cheaters. Nothing is done to clean the platform from small crooks." Harsh words, but true. "Hope I will come back one day when it's been cleaned up, etc., etc. The strength is in truth. Peace out." But then he came back and he played a few times. And yesterday he tweeted this: "Such a lineup. Timur even okay will play for a change as well. Hikaru, Leon Beast, Lachess's Q, that's Nepomniachtchi, Paravian, Denis Lazovic, Wesley So, Jose Eduardo Martinez Alcantara, Raul Sedwani, Fabiano Caruana, Eduardo Iturrizaga, Jan Krzysztof Duda." A lot of really good players, and he decided to play. Now, then he played Magnus, but this is how it ended. Vladimir Kramnik made a Twitter recently to continue to post things. At some point, he responded to somebody. I saw this yesterday. He said that he wanted to join me for a video, but I'm not allowed. That's what he said. He said, "I'm not allowed." I don't know who's allowing me. Maybe God. I've already stated here publicly that while it would be an interesting conversation with Vladimir, I don't think we're going to get anywhere. I think we're just going to talk in circles. I don't think we're going to get to the bottom of any issue. I think he has his opinions. And yesterday he said, "I already forgot how disgusting it is to play cheating Tuesdays. We'll play remaining games and no more. Thank you." All right. Amazing. Now, Magnus yesterday played Entitled Tuesday, and it was a hoot. It was a hoot, and he actually got a game against Vladimir Kramnik, which was sensational. But before I show you that game, which I will show you, anytime you go to a nice restaurant, you do start off with a nice appetizer. And look, my friends, I had to show you one more game. You get 2 games of Magnus. You click for 1 game, you get 2 games. It's actually completely ridiculous, or the way we would say in the words of Mr. Kramnik, it's very, very interesting. The way Magnus can get a rating of 3,370 and play stuff like this. I mean, he plays games where he plays H3 and then G4. It's unbelievable. He just literally plays garbage openings, gives his opponents much better positions, sometimes completely winning positions, and then he wins. And then he wins the games. I mean, I've never seen anything like it before. So this game against Sergei Zhigalko, very strong grandmaster, he opened with H4, and then he played a Scandinavian defense. You may ask, what am I talking about? Well, the Scandinavian defense is when black brings the queen out and then rotates the queen to the A file. Well, Magnus basically does the exact same thing, except he's basically got a pawn here, which I imagine is not doing his position any favors, although he can put his bishop on G5, and he could expand if his opponent does in fact castle that way. And it seems like I can't make moves on this board because black's clock reset. Okay, tremendous. Queen takes D4, all right? Knight C6, Queen A4. Love when chess.com does that. Just puts the clock on 0. Knight F6. Magnus plays Knight F3 and just plays normally. Just basically plays like he hasn't actually put a pawn on H4. He's playing a reverse Scandinavian defense. E3, Knight C3. And clearly he wants to castle. If black were to take on F4, Magnus would play Queen takes. And then he would castle, play bishop here, and launch an attack at his opponent's king. So now Zhigalko tries to pin his knight. Magnus counterattacks with the same bishop move and takes the damage to his pawn structure over here while also having light squared weaknesses and a random pawn on the H4 square. Okay, A6 takes, not takes. If takes, there would have been bishop takes, and then he would have had to move the queen. So he comes here. He's not worried about discovered attacks. And that's the thing when you play against Magnus. He does these ridiculous things against you, but there's no knight jump that helps. Knight here is a discovered attack on the queen, but the queen's just going to move. Knight can't actually do any damage. So Zhigalko's doing a nice thing here with his pieces. If queen takes, there is a nice combination. Knight takes, followed by taking here. If queen takes, then knight takes, queen here, knight takes here. There's bishop b5, defended, x-raying and skewering the queen to the rook. That's not very nice. Now, Zhigalko does get a pretty good game here, but he's down 2 minutes. This is the other thing about playing Magnus. He plays really quickly, all right? And he knows when his opponents are nervous. Right now, Magnus's queen has to dance out of the way. He ends up taking because his opponent only has 30 seconds on the clock. And then he does this. He's targeting a pawn. He has some good pressure here, but at the end of it, he's just going to lose the pawn on h4. That stupid pawn that he put there on the first move of the game, well, then it sneaks out of the way, and now he actually could have a potential thing knocking on the door here. Now, in some completely absurd turn of events, that pawn ends up helping Magnus very, very nicely, which is kind of nuts because, you know, it looks like he's just getting destroyed on the queen side, right? Looks like black can simply play b takes. For some reason, he doesn't. He plays h6. Now Magnus does this and zips in with his queen. Now, if black trades the queens here, he probably can't lose. But he's Magnus, so for some reason, Magnus makes him panic. And instead, he goes for this. Now, if the queens are kept on the board, it's probably going to be... And look how quickly Magnus can turn on the pressure. And by the way, the queen can't go to g6 playing defense because of this idiot pawn that he put there. Magnus plays rook c1, and now it goes from black better to equal to queen g4 to black bishop f6 on the verge of defeat, plays rook c7, rook c3. What do? You can't take. This is mate. You can't play rook f6 because of rook c7. The only move here is bishop c4. Zhigalko, 5 seconds on the clock, panics, takes the bishop, loses the rook. It's much worse than that because he's actually getting mated. He goes here, but white's king is safe and Magnus wins. I mean, the ease at which he does this is just... hilarious. I don't even know. Now, this was his game against Vladimir Kramnik. And he trolled him. He trolled Mr. Kramnik. I just realized the dimensions of the board are slightly off. The crop is a little bit weird in today's video. Hold on a second. That's a little bit strange. Why is it like that? That's... okay. Needs to come up a little bit, I think. There we go. That was weird. Sorry. Just realized this profile photo was cut off. Or maybe that's just the profile photo. Maybe that's just what it looks like. Okay. Anyway, his profile photo tripped me out. All right, whatever. That was Kramnik trolling me. So, Vladimir is playing Entitled Tuesday. Plays e4, but he spends 1 minute and 20 seconds on this move because he probably didn't know it was his move. That probably also didn't make him very happy. Magnus goes here. h6. This is called the car defense. You also notice Magnus Chad behavior. Former world champion goes to 139 on move 1. Magnus also spending 1 minute and 20 seconds to even out the clock. That is what we call good sportsmanship. You know what we call bad sportsmanship? Playing e6 and a6. Oh my goodness. This is one of the most accomplished chess players who has ever lived, Mr. Kramnik. And Magnus is doing this. It's unbelievable. He's like the kid in the back of the classroom that secretly a genius. He's just bored in class. That's why he's misbehaving. Now, shockingly, this is like equal. So I might just have to play the Magnus opening. Now, black is going to try to use the pawns as a springboard. And it's better to use the queen side as a springboard because the king might still want to castle short, which is why he plays b5. All right, that pawn could be used for b4 at some point in the future. White generally does not want to commit a pawn move here because, first of all, it doesn't even stop b4. The bishop will come in. But second of all, it's a little bit of a waste of time because the knight can always wrap around. So a very common move here is bishop d3 to meet b4 with knight here, which would no longer block the bishop, and the bishop would be defending the center pawn. We can actually watch this from Magnus's perspective, okay? Because then he plays c5. He's still not developing any pieces. If you're watching this at home and you're young, don't play chess like this, all right? You got to put pawns in the center, knights, bishops, and you say, well, Levy, Gotham does it. Why? Not Gotham, Magnus does it. Why can't I do it if Magnus does it? Because he's kind of better than you, you know? Not by a lot, but by enough. So you shouldn't really do what he does. Now, takes, bishop takes. So now Magnus has gotten rid of one of Kramnik's central pawns, and he's actually got two of his own left. So if you count the central imbalance, black is actually very happy. And now he develops his bishop. So he's got nice pressure. The best move here, unquestionably, in my opinion, is e5. e5 for white controls black's natural development, and it takes away dark square control. I really like this move, e5. I'm not going to put it on the board because I think it's going to break the board and it's going to make the clock go back to being zeros, which is really annoying. White plays a4 here, right? So Kramnik is trying to say, I think your pawn is stupid, a4. Could he have considered e5 and maybe bishop f4 developing? Yes. But he plays a4, claiming he's not afraid of b4. So Magnus plays b4 and says, all right, if you're not afraid of b4, let's go. And now Magnus develops his knight to f6, virtually begging for e5 to be played. Begging for this move. Saying, you got to play this move, Vlad. And then I'm going to jump in. I'm going to, when the pawn gets here, I'm going to trade it or I'm going to target it. Right? But Magnus has this tendency to freeze opponents a little bit. And they don't play e5, and instead they play knight g3, which is fine. Vladimir rotates his knight to g3. Very powerful knights, control 4 squares of action. Black can castle. Black can play d5. Black can also play more passively with d6. He does play d6. He doesn't castle yet. He doesn't castle, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. I don't know why he's not castling. Like, you ask me, the most natural move is castles. But clearly, maybe he doesn't like e5. Maybe he doesn't like white's attacking possibilities. Maybe he doesn't like e5, and then something will get to the e4 square. It'll pressure that diagonal, pressure that. I don't know. But he plays d6. Kramnik plays queen e2. Now, the best move has to be castles, right? Has to be. According to the computer, it is. No, Magnus plays knight d7. He's not even thinking. Every move is coming in 1 second. Now it's a little late to play e5. Now, if you play e5, black actually has enough on that square that he can play bishop takes knight. Not that one, but that one. And that hits the queen and actually removes the defender of the e5 pawn completely. So black would be very happy. Now e5 is off the table. If e5 is off the table, you can't activate the knight and the bishop. White should now play a5, which Kramnik does. Nice positional move. Rook defends the pawn, disconnects black from ever joining the pawns together, and prevents anything from going to b6. It's a nice idea, but it could be a long-term liability. Magnus again doesn't castle. Every move that he's made, look at Magnus's time from the very beginning of the game. 140. Every move is around 137, 135. 137, 138, 139. He's not even thinking. Every move Magnus is making is coming in 1 second. Finally, he spends 6 seconds and he makes a big decision. Everything is solid. White's got a major pawn break, which could work or could not work. Black can, of course, castle, play a long-term game. No. Magnus here attacks Kramnik with his h-pawn. Wow. Attacks Kramnik with his h-pawn. That is very interesting. Now, the major question is, will white play h4? It's a major decision to make. Kramnik spends 20 seconds and opts not to do this. By showing Kramnik he wants to attack him and getting Kramnik to play and commit a pawn 2 squares, Magnus will win the g4 square. From the g4 square, he will not be easily booted, and he will apply steady pressure to the white position. Also, after h4, every time a pawn moves, something gets stronger, something gets weaker. The pawn stops guarding the knight. That pawn is actually not guarding the knight because it's pinned. So a move like d5 would open up a queen takes knight situation. Very interesting stuff, right? Because you can't take the, right? Can't take. Kramnik decides to play bishop g5. Computer doesn't like that move. Doesn't like it a whole lot, but it's okay with it. Now, Magnus openly says, go ahead and take my knight. Take my knight, because then I'm going to get this brick wall in front of my king, and I'm going to put my king right there. That is so crazy. That's such a deep idea. Hiding the king in the center behind the wall of pawns, knowing his opponent can't get in as well, and creating a Tetris piece of pawns over here. A 2-in-1 like that. All right? Now, knight takes, pawn takes. Magnus has not spent any time. He started this game with 140. He's barely spent any time. He's averaging about 1 to 2 seconds every single move. Now, it's actually okay to play h4. It's okay to play this move. But it's still a very big decision because obviously black will get this in the future. Now, Vladimir says, wait a minute. I can take the knight and I can take the pawn. And he does. Magnus straight up loses a pawn. Not only does he lose a pawn, he might lose another one with check. He plays king e7. And Magnus uses this completely ridiculous opening that he played to reverse course in the game. Did Kramnik have to take on f6? Probably not. But Magnus has a very solid center. He's still constantly eyeing for this. Knight h7 could happen as well. Queen c6 defends everything and pressures the center. And this brick wall just basically prevents white from getting any attack, ever. White has no access to the black position at all. But king e7, what a position. Look at this. He has a Tetris piece of pawns protecting his king. Queen f3, queen f6 is scary, but black can just go here. The rooks are coming. Now, the only thing preventing black from getting a totally devastating attack is the fact that the center is blocked. And it will be blocked for a while. Black cannot play the move f5 because white will take, ruining the king. So Kramnik just goes back to g3. And now, rook h4, which is the best move. It is the top engine move. Now, if I'm playing black here, I'm going here. Because I want to put my rook there right away. No. Magnus puts the rook on the best possible square, simultaneously controlling f4. Ooh, something got in my throat. Oh my goodness. Breathed in. I feel like I breathed in like fuzz. Or maybe I'm just allergic to Magnus's openings. Rook h4 controls anything going to the fourth rank, pressures the pawn, prevents queen g4, and sets up a doubling. But the best part, once you get white to make one pawn move, you've created a sufficient weakness, and that's the knight. And now you switch your plan. Rook g8, hitting the knight. All of this is being hit. And now, after king h2, Magnus follows up with the best move. I told you a little while ago, you can't open up the position that easily here. Not possible. Can't play f5 because white controls it really, really well. So instead of f5, Magnus plays f5. What? Yeah, leaving that pawn. And if pawn takes, he's got devastating intentions with e4. That is another reason why the rook needed to come play defense. You say, what e4? E4 is defended 1, 2, and 3 times. No, because when this pawn goes up, the queen's door is opened. And the queen actually pins the knight to the king, which means the knight has no role in the game. It's paralyzed. So bishop takes a6. Kramnik, bold, very bold move, grabbing a second pawn and basically saying, Magnus, I don't believe you. I don't believe you have an attack. Well, now Magnus plays bishop takes e4, a very critical decision. And white's position is falling apart because black is going to come back and snipe from a distance. Now we see the power of the bishop pair. The bishops are snipers. The rooks are snipers. f4 is knocking on the door. The knight has got to pay up. The knight takes. Now we bring in the rook. We see the entire justification of this. It's actually beautiful, the symphony that Magnus conducts with his pieces. The queen comes out to h5, simultaneously putting pressure on the black position, but also covering key squares. Magnus plays rook d4. All right? Trying to slide his e-pawn forward. The top computer move here was actually rook f4, with the idea, if pawn to g3, e4, sacrificing the rook for a checkmating attack. Magnus didn't spot that. Plays rook d4 instead. Now Kramnik gets his king out of the way, but unfortunately, this is game over. That's just an attack on the bishop and a checkmate. And there is absolutely nothing to be done. White's pieces are totally stuck. There is no way they can create counterplay. The queen goes back. He takes the bishop, c3, and now we'll see how he converts the game. Bishop b4, he allows a check, and now his king goes to hide out with the pawns again. What a safety net for the king. A beautiful safety net. Queen b6, Magnus says, all right, you know what? You want a queen trade? No problem. Rook b8, rook a6, rook d6. And Kramnik lost on time here, only had 1 second, but of course, rook b6 is coming. And then you win the endgame by planting the bishop firmly, winning the b-pawn, winning the f-pawn, and marching, creating a pass pawn, making a queen. Magnus opens with the car defense, h6, e6, a6, b5. I might give this a little bit of a shot as well. I always like to see how he beats some of the best players in the world. Also opens up with h4. Magnus tied for first in Title Tuesday with 9.5 points out of 11, despite not playing a game because there were server problems. So he lost a full round. He did not get paired. He got a 0, and he scored 9.5 out of 10 in the games that he did play, and he tied for first with 9.5 points. Very curious to see what's going to happen next. I mean, I can't imagine Vladimir takes too kindly to trolling nonsense openings, but I'm not really sure. The bigger storyline, of course, is Kramnik saying these are cheating Tuesdays and he's not going to play in them anymore. This might be the third or fourth time he has promised not to come back to play on Just.com. He always does. He plays against Prague. He's played against Fabiano Caruana recently. He plays against strong players who I believe, he respects and believes are legitimate. Oh, and one more thing. I think Magnus, to get to 3370, has won 60. He has like 65 out of 70 points. Like, Magnus has played 70 games on Chess.com, and he's got a streak over 60. I think he hasn't lost the game in 45 or 50 games. I checked this yesterday. It's like completely absurd. He has like 45 wins and 5 draws. So, in the words of a chess legend, some of you may find this very interesting. Of course, that is said tongue-in-cheek, and yeah, let's hope Magnus gets to 3400 Blitz. It's the month of Magnus Carlsen at the moment on Chess.com. They have all these bots. I will be playing the Magni bots pretty soon. I'm going to try to get them to play against Stockfish as well. That's all. That's all. Get out of here.